Hello, my name is Sandy Heslop, and welcome to SIGGRAPH 2021 and my talk on AWS and Lexhag VFX and how our transformation has happened from a physical to a virtual studio. As we're all online this year, I'm coming to you from a rather damp Sevenoaks in Kent in the UK. It's not that unusual for it to be damp, I've got to say. So, during the course of this talk, I'll be giving you an introduction to Lexhag visual effects, the way we approach VFX, our core team, the process we went through virtualizing the studio, and of course I'll be showing you some of our work and specifically the work we've done since changing to AWS. So, who am I? Well, I'm the studio supervisor of the Norfolk Studio. I have a 20-year career working in film, TV, video games, advertising, predominantly working as an animator or a previs artist. Animation is my trade, so to speak. I've also spent a bit of time working outside the media industry, working in bespoke lighting. I've been involved in the manufacturing and fabrication of lighting installations, not just the 3D design side. And like most of us in the core team at Lexhag, we wear many hats. And despite my trade being animation, I'm often these days doing CG supervision or doing a bit of on-set supervision. And this is Alexis, and Alexis is my boss. He's the founder and creative director of Lexhag VFX. He trained at film school, graduating in traditional special effects. After graduation, he headed into industry and pursued his passion, gaining a broad range of skills in floor effects, props, model making, prosthetics, and in miniatures. He worked in the magic industry, actually, for quite a while, designing the physical props. As the effects industry transitioned into the digital, Alexis saw the change away from physical and retrained in visual effects. He established Lexhag VFX in 2009, and ever since, he's supervised and delivered over 50 high-end productions, most of these being high-end TV dramas. And here is our lovely team. Look at all their lovely, smiley, shiny faces. This is our core team, and this is what we expand from, depending on what the show requires as the job comes in. It's not just two of us. And here's a few examples of our more recent work that we've been involved in. In no particular order, we've got Oceans of Air, Stones from Diamonds, Riviera, Poldark, The Long Song, Man in the Orange Shirt, Too Close, Ghosts, We Hunt Together, Riviera, and Avenue 5. We have here our showreel, just to give you something more exciting than a page of still images to look at. So we have two physical studios. Our locations are in Norfolk, and of course we've got a London base as well. We have, about a couple of years ago, set up a studio just outside of Norwich in Norfolk. We're located on a former RAF base, which itself is an interesting location just to be in. We have access to a 55,000 square foot hangar, which is a brilliant space to film in. We've got a 1.6 mile long runway, which we can utilize for filming driving sequences, for example. And in addition, we've got a myriad of private roads and forests, and lakes and beaches, all a stone's throw away from the airbase, that we can utilize. So it's a really exciting place to have a studio at. In addition, we've got the London studio, which now has become more of a production base. And we use it for client meetings and reviews, really. So this is a list of the things that we do as a company, really. This is our sort of bread and butter. We do on-set supervision. We do pre-production, storyboarding, concept, pre-viz, tech-viz, design and build specialist equipment if required, R&D, shot development. We do creative, technical concept supervision, high-res data capture. We do LiDAR scanning. Jonathan, one of our supervisors, is both a real pilot and a drone pilot. So we do aerial photogrammetry, plate capture. We do motion capture. We've also just recently started stepping into the world of virtual production with Unreal Engine. And we do all the usual things you would expect a VFX post-production place to do. We do 3D modeling and texturing and animation, crowd simulation, FX simulation, compositing, quality control and delivery. All as you would expect. And we've got a couple of quotes from a couple of people that we've worked with on a number of shows. This is Rupesh, who we've worked with on Poldark, Ordeal by Innocence, and the Long Song. One of the things that we are very keen on is using our mix of skills. So we have a blend between traditional special effects and visual effects. And we've got a lot of people in the company that have sort of more technical engineering skills, and we can blend that to try and get good solutions for our clients that are a nice balance. So we're not always just pushing the visual effects side. We try and integrate with special effects. And here's Ronnie, head of production at Mammoth. We worked with her on Ordeal by Innocence, The Pale Horse, and Poldark, which we worked on for all 5 seasons. And here, just reiterating, this is we worked on all 5 seasons of Poldark. 80% of our business is from returning clients, which we're quite proud of. So we really do try and understand our clients, and it seems from the returning custom that we seem to get it right, which we're quite proud of, and rightly so. Okay, AWS and us. So about 2014, Alexis was using AWS S3 to back up all of our work in progress scripts. In those days, Lexhag had a pipeline that used Tactic, and the emphasis of the real kind of AWS side of it was really to use it to back up these scripts. Now we moved away from that pipeline, we changed our pipeline, and we went back to using hard drives and tapes to back up our work. And our IT network, before we changed over to AWS, that's not actually a picture of our server room. It wasn't quite that messy, but almost. Our IT network was not particularly complicated. We had a couple of servers, one specifically dealing with our backups, the other dealing with our day-to-day files that we used as we worked day-to-day. We had a little cluster of render nodes. We had a screening room set up. And there was various machines throughout the studio for the 2D artists and the 3D artists. One of the issues with being in Soho in London and being in an 18th century building was that it doesn't necessarily mix with modern technology. Old buildings leak, which is, water and electronics aren't really very good bedfellows. And also mice like cables. It's very hard to get rid of mice from old buildings, especially in London. So all of these things, were sort of negatives, I would say, for our on-prem IT network. So Alexis went to AWS reInvent conference in 2018. We had stopped using AWS in our pipeline some years beforehand, and he came back from Vegas, and he had seen the way that AWS had developed over the years and was really keen that we should start looking at it and see how we could integrate some bits of it into our pipeline. It wasn't necessarily that we were thinking about going fully onto AWS, but certainly there were parts of it that we were looking at starting to integrate. So as I mentioned before, Lexhag prides itself on being a multi-skilled team, and as a result of this, Jonathan and myself, we found ourselves in early 2019 in a room full of IT professionals on an AWS course. This was a bit like jumping into the deep end of a swimming pool to teach yourself how to swim. And while I wouldn't say that either of us were swimming by the end of the course, we were certainly able to manage a fairly competent doggy paddle through the range of things that you could now do with AWS. So what was it that AWS offered us? Well, firstly, the thing that really interested us was the complete scalability. This is really important for a small studio where the logistics of getting equipment physically in place takes time and money, especially if you're investing in new equipment. You can change the power of your equipment to fit your job in a way which you wouldn't be able to previously. So within a couple of minutes, you could upgrade your machine if you wanted to, which is something that obviously the logistics of doing that once you've bought in a machine or hired a machine in, obviously it's not particularly easy to do that. So the worry about changing to AWS. I wouldn't say that we completely jumped into AWS without any reservations. We were worried about several things. Primarily, it was, is it actually cheaper? Would we have the bandwidth to actually be able to use these machines? And also, there was a sort of a strange feeling about using a machine that's not really there. It's not under your desk. It's sort of a trust issue, I guess, really. One of the things that AWS allows you to do, that we found out pretty quickly, is it allows you to tell the clients exactly what the compute cost is of your job. And beforehand, this wasn't a particularly easy task, and now we're finding it's a total in a spreadsheet that we can grab at any time, which is quite useful, because before it was always sort of a bit of a kind of finger in the air exercise. So February 2020, the dreaded COVID-19 strikes, and we're all aware of the impact on, what that's had on all of our working lives. The one thing it did for us was to accelerate the plans that we had for changing over to AWS. It was the perfect catalyst, really, for making the company virtual. So that's what we did. We went ahead and we've virtualized the studio. We basically replicated our on-premises workflow in the cloud. This included more than a decade's worth of legacy material, which required quite a bit of planning. We engaged an IT solutions provider, Transact, to move more than 170 terabytes of data stored in various formats to our Amazon S3. This also forced us to look at what we were keeping and forced us to prune the data, with most of our files going to Amazon Glacier Deep Archive. Along with the S3 storage, we now have a Linux-based workflow with our virtual workstations. We use Amazon FSX for file throughput, and we have a fleet of EC2 Spot instances for tiered rendering. We manage our render resources with AWS ThinkBox. We use Deadline. We use Autodesk ShotGrid for our project management. And the other kind of applications we use include Autodesk Maya, 3D Max, Arnold. We use Foundry's Nuke and Hero. We use Houdini. And we use Blackmagic Design's DaVinci Resolve and Fusion. And what we have now on AWS is basically a mirror of what we have on premises. So, remote working capability. We're now a fully cloud-based studio. We can meet the demands of a client at a moment's notice. We can access the best talent anywhere around the world, and we can securely pass data to and from. We have pretty uninterrupted workflows. AWS does all the heavy lifting, so we can basically focus on the creating. We're not really worrying about whether we have the compute power to do a task anymore. And we've had 6 shows that we've delivered remotely in the past year. So for a small company, a boutique VFX studio, we really haven't had the issues that we thought we might do. So in many ways, the COVID made us jump into the deep end of the swimming pool, and it was all right. So one of the things that I mean, there's more than a few things at AWS that quite interesting, and we're always looking at the kind of the latest thing that AWS are working on and how we can sort of integrate it. One of the things that we discovered early on attending on the AWS meeting was about the AWS Snowball. And so these days, when there are ever increasing amounts of data that you're required to collect on set when you're supervising, one of the things that AWS offers is this Snowball service. The Snowball can be sent out to you on set and enables you to back up your data. And then the Snowball is collected from set, and the data is uploaded to your S3 bucket of choice, which is one less task to worry about at the end of a long shoot day, which is kind of cool. And they can send it anywhere, and there are various sizes. I went to do a sales pitch for the Snowball, but yeah, it's something that has quite excited us. Another example of something that we ended up using AWS for, and we weren't expecting to use it in this way, is we do a lot of scanning, dealing with point cloud data, and we had this scan here, which I can play while I'm talking, and this is a scan of a bunker network, and we took this scan for a client, and they were keen to see it as fast as possible, of course. And so what we decided to do, because obviously it's a huge scan, there's an awful lot of data, we decided to mount the scan on a small EC2. And we sent a link to the client. And this meant that the client could navigate around the full resolution point cloud quickly and easily, without the need for any kind of long, laborious transfer of data and a sort of explanation of how to use it, etc., etc. So yeah, and it's a little example of one of the ways that we've sort of discovered that AWS has changed our workflow. So work that we've done using AWS. So this is the Pale Horse. And the Pale Horse we started was actually pre-pandemic, but we were beginning to use AWS already. So for the BBC, we worked on an adaptation of Agatha Christie's Pale Horse. The story follows a murder investigation launched into the death of a young woman, and a mysterious list of names that's discovered in her shoe. Antique dealer Mark Easterbrook is determined to find out who wrote the list and who the names refer to. It aired on BBC One on iPlayer in February 2020. And this two-part Agatha Christie drama, it was set in the 1960s, adapted by Sarah Phelps. We worked closely with Mammoth Screen, and we produced over 130 VFX shots from cleanup to sky replacement. And we had some more complex fire simulations and set extensions. This, as I said, it was a pre-COVID show, but we'd already started to integrate AWS into our pipeline. So we weren't fully virtualized. The studio was really, as I say, taking tentative steps towards it. We supplemented basically our on-prem equipment with AWS machines, and the artists also had the option of using the AWS network for extra render power. Next show that we did, following on really from the Pale Horse, was Unidentified, Inside America's UFO investigation. This was for the History Channel, and 6 West Media teamed up with us to provide we provided on-set supervision, and we also provided the VFX production for it. We were tasked with bringing the fantastical accounts of the UFO sightings to life in a realistic manner. The brief was to help keep the visuals plausible while maintaining the intrigue of the reports. This is a slide showing our airbase where the Norfolk Studio is based, and we shot basically around a lot of the locations on this base. Some of the work that we're doing. So we provided supervision for the key elements on location. We're inside cockpits on the runway, locations around the Norfolk Studio, as I said. Our location on the former RAF base proved to be quite a big advantage for the production, providing numerous sort of locations for the show. The on-set supervision for this was taking place as COVID was really starting to take hold in the UK. So it was clear that delivering this project could become tricky. And if we didn't accelerate our kind of transition to AWS. So, I mean, that's what we did. It was pure luck for us, really, that we'd spent the past few years dabbling with AWS. So what could have been a real nightmare scenario of lockdowns and working from home turned out to be anything but. I'm not going to say it was completely seamless for us, but our clients didn't notice a thing, and really that's the important thing. And then we move on to Too Close. It's a Snowden production commissioned. Snowden Productions commissioned us for their 3-part psychological thriller. It aired in 2021. We worked as the VFX vendor on the show, the sole VFX vendor on the show, delivering previs, on-set supervision. We did some complex particle simulations. We did some creature sequences, all to portray the kind of disturbing psychosis that are kind of played out in the story. The story is of a young mother struggling with her mental health and her relationship with Dr. Robertson, her psychotherapist. So the scope of the work, amongst other things, was to bring these delusional episodes to life in a way that felt realistic, but also to make them disturbing enough to pack a visual and emotive response and to aid the narrative. So by this time, we were really a fully cloud-based studio. This was a fully cloud-based production, and we have been working that way ever since. It's something that I think a couple of years ago we wouldn't really have dreamt that it would be possible, but obviously circumstances with COVID has led us into this situation, and it's been so far very successful for us. And yeah, I would encourage you to give Amazon AWS a try if you're thinking about it. It's really not that complicated. So yeah, go check it out, and thanks for listening.